Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Jai Vishnu Pada Paramsa Vairajakacha Ashtotar Shatasi Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Nitai Gaur Premanand Hari Hari Bol. Right? Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Prabhu, for joining. I need a lot of your blessings. Today, let me share the screen first. Yeah. I hope devotees online, they are able to see the screen. Yeah, Hare Krishna. So, today we are going to read from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 5, Text 3. Janasya Krishna Vimukasya Daiva Adharmasilasya Sudukkitasya Anugrahaye Charati Nunam Bhutani Bhavyani Janatanasya. So I'll read one more time. Janasya Krishna Vimukasya Daiva Janasya Krishna Vimukasya Daiva Adharmasilasya Sudukkitasya Adharmasilasya Sudukkitasya Anugrahayena Charati Nunam Anugrahayena Charati Nunam Bhutani Bhavyani Janardanasya Bhutani Bhavyani Janardanasya Janasya Krishna Vimukasya Daiva Adharmasilasya Sudukkitasya Janasya Krishna Vimukasya Daiva Adharmasilasya Sudukkitasya Anugrahaye Charanti Nunam Anugrahaye Charanti Nunam Bhutani Bhavyani Janardanasya Bhutani Bhavyani Janardanasya. Synonyms and translation. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Janasya, of the common man. Krishna, from the Supreme Lord Krishna. Vimukasya, of the one who has turned his face against the Lord. Daivat, by the influence of external energy. Adharma Silasya, of one who is engaged in irreligion. Sudukitasya, of one who is always unhappy. Anugrahaya, due to being compassionate towards them. Iha, in this world. Charanti, wander. Nunam, certainly. Bhutani, persons. Bhavyani, great philanthropic souls. Janardhanasya, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Translation. O my Lord, great philanthropic souls travel on the earth on behalf of the Supreme Personality of God to show compassion to the fallen souls who are averse to the sense of subordination to the Lord. One more time. O my Lord, great philanthropic souls travel on the earth on behalf of the Supreme Personality of Godhead to show compassion to the fallen souls who are averse to the sense of subordination to the Lord. 3.5.3. Purport. To be obedient to the wishes of the Supreme Lord is the natural position of every living entity. But due only to past misdeeds, Shri Shri Radha Shyamasundar ki jai, Shri Shri Radha Madhava ki jai, Shri Gauranitai ki jai. To be obedient to the wishes of the Supreme Lord is the natural position of every living entity. But due only to past mistakes, a living being becomes averse to the sense of subordination to the Lord and suffers all the miseries of material existence. No one has anything to do but render devotional service to the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna. Therefore, any activity other than transcendental loving service to the Lord is more or less a rebellious action against the Supreme will. All fruitive activity, empirical philosophy, and mysticism are more or less against the sense of subordination to the Lord. And any living entity engaged in such rebellious activity is more or less condemned by the laws of material nature, which work under the subordination of the Lord. Great unalloyed devotees of the Lord are compassionate towards the fallen, and therefore they travel all over the world with the mission of bringing souls back to God, back home. Such pure devotees of the Lord carry the message of Godhead in order to deliver the fallen souls. And therefore, the common man who is bewildered by the influence of external energy of the Lord should avail himself of their association. So before we moving on, we'll chant the pranam mantras. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakhanvitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpati Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Pancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yatkripatamaham Vande Sri Gurun Dinataranam Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya 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 Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we will also offer prayers to Srimad Bhagavatam. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udiraye Sushrusho Shraddhadanasya Vasudeva Katharuchi Syan Mahatsevaya Vipra Punyatirtha Nishemana Shunvatam Swakata Krishna Punyasravana Kirtana Hridayantasto Bhadrani Vidunoti Suhrut Satam Nashtaprayeshu Apatreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatam-shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki Tadarajastamo Bhava Kamalokadayaschaye Chetayetairanavittam Stitam Sattve Prasidhati Evam Prasanna Manaso Bhagavat Bhakti Yogataha Bhagavat Tattva Vijnanam Mukta Sangasya Jayate Vidyate Hridaya Gandhis Chityante Sarva Samshayam Shriyante Chasya Karmani Drishtaye Manishwari. Thank you very much again for joining for the morning Srimad Bhagavatam reading from Sri Sri Radha Shyamsundar Temple of ISKCON Naperville. So today we are going to read Canto 3, Chapter 5, Text 3. I will read the text one more time for whoever joined now. Janasya Krishna Vimukasya Daiva Adharmaseelasya Sudukkitasya Anugrahayeha Charanti Nonam Bhutani Bhavyani Janardhanasya. So such a beautiful verse. I think it's a verse for memorization as well. Translation. O my Lord, great philanthropic souls, travel on the earth on behalf of the Supreme Personality of Godhead to show compassion to the fallen souls who are averse to the sense of subordination to the Lord. So we will highlight a few Sanskrit words here. The first line talks about Janasya Krishna Vimukasya Daiva. Krishna Vimukasya. In general, conditioned souls in this material world, they're averse to the Lord Sri Krishna. They don't want the Lord because of the influence of the Daiva. There is Maya, Prakriti, right? So they are not interested in Krishna consciousness. And because they are not interested in Krishna consciousness, what is the result? They are prone to adharma silasya sudukhitasya, right? So they do all kinds of adharmic activities, and because of that, they are sudukhitasya. They are basically unhappy, distressed, or Prabhupada translated it as one who is always unhappy, right? So what is the solution for this people who are always unhappy? The only solution is anugraha, that is the compassionate nature. Whose compassionate nature? It is the devotees charanti nona, who are traveling all over the world. Bhutani, the devotees, bhavyani, the great philanthropic souls, janardanasya, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In fact, here it is translated as, "O my Lord, great philanthropic souls travel on the earth on behalf of the Supreme Personality of Godhead to show compassion to the fallen souls who are averse to the sense of subordination to the Lord." So, for the benefit of all who are present here also, the context here is now the Vidura meets Maitreya Muni in the Haridwar region. So before that, Vidura was guided by Uddhava to go to Haridwar to meet Maitreya. So that is why he has come to Haridwar to meet Maitreya Muni. And before going to one more step before, Maitreya Muni heard the instructions given by the Lord to Uddhava on the banks of Saraswati River, which is in the area of, I'm forgetting the name. It's a Prabhas, yeah, sorry, it's a Prabhas Kshetra. So generally, I used to get confused before. This particular discussion happened between the Lord and Uddhava. I used to think it as Uddhava Gita, right? Because Uddhava Gita is a very popular section in 11th canto. There are many chapters actually talking about the discussion, the great discussion between the Lord and Uddhava. And it is like Bhagavad Gita, but it is called Uddhava Gita, even though Krishna spoke to Uddhava. But it's so popular that it is actually named, Uddhava's name is given rather than Lord's name, unlike Bhagavad Gita. But this particular discussion between the Lord and Uddhava has actually happened in Dwaraka itself. When Uddhava senses that the Lord is about to leave this world, winding up all the pastimes, then out of separation, he asks, "Please take with me to the spiritual world with you." But then Krishna says, "No, you have a service here. You have to go to Badrikashram and give association to the sages there, Naranarayan Rishi." And he speaks Uddhava Gita there. And after that, he gives instruction to go to Badrikashrama. But out of separation to the Lord, Uddhava doesn't go straight to the Badrikashram. He again meets the Lord in the Pravas Kshetra on the banks of Saraswati River. And he again asks the Lord for the instruction. So at this time, Lord speaks Bhagavatam, Chatushlaki Bhagavatam, it is said specifically, but details were not mentioned. It's just Lord himself says that I spoke this knowledge to the Lord Brahma, and I am speaking this knowledge to you right now. So that's what is given there. And during that discussion between the Lord and uh, Uddhava, by the providence, Maitreya Muni was also present. And the Lord knows that Maitreya was present, but he shows more favor to the Uddhava, showing affection. So based on this affection, actually, even though Maitreya Muni was a great sage, even though he is a Jnani, uh, but based on this discussion by hearing the discussion between the Lord and Uddhava, he also becomes pure devotee. He becomes so inspired that his heart transforms and he also becomes a pure devotee. So after this incident, they depart and the Lord instruct again to Uddhava to go to Badrikashram, and Maitreya Muni goes to uh, uh, Maitreya Muni goes to uh, Haridwar. Sorry. Yeah. So now, after this, when Uddhava was traveling, he comes to Vrindavan on the banks of the Ganges. He was meditating on the Lord. Then during that time, Vidura also comes there after his pilgrimage. From Prabhakshetra, he comes to Vrindavan. So then he meets Uddhava. Then he asks about all the well-being of the Uddhava, and he says, "Can you please tell me what the Lord spoke to you on the bank of the Saraswati?" Uh, but Uddhava says, no, I will not speak to you right now. I have to go to Badrikashram. But in any case, it would be beyond my etiquette uh, uh, because at that time, Maitreya Muni was also present and he is a senior devotee. And you ask him, he will tell whatever is required, right? So, and he says, go to Haridwar and you can meet him there. So that is why Vidura goes to Haridwar. So now we are at the point of Haridwar, where actually Vidura is glorifying uh, Maitreya Muni. And how he is glorifying? He is glorifying that Bhutani Bhavyani Janardhanasya. So he's saying great souls, Prabhupada translated it as great philanthropic souls. That means people, devotees who are really compassionate and concerned for the devotees. They travel all over the world. They keep traveling. Why they are traveling? And they're traveling on behalf of the Supreme Personality of the Godhead, because they want to glorify the Lord. They want to preach the message of the Lord, and to whom they want to show this knowledge to the fallen souls who are averse to the sense of subordination to the Lord. So that is given as Janasya Krishna Vimukhasya Daivat. Devotees, not devotees, people who are against the Lord. Vimukhasya, they showed their face back to the Lord. They're not towards the Lord, right? So that's the context here. And in fact, it is just the glorification that before we see in any of the conversation in Srimad Bhagavatam, before they ask any question, they first glorify the speaker. So this is in a way Vidura glorifying Maitreya Muni. And this particular verse is also direct uh, example of so many devotees who has actually exactly followed this specific verse, right? Beginning from current acharyas in our movement right now, who are always traveling, right? Whether they're sannyasis or senior devotees, spiritual masters, all kinds, even brahmacharis, they travel. So many devotees. In fact, I think next month, we have so many visitors lined up, right? So the devotees travel, right? And they carry the message of the Lord for the conditioned souls. And the best example is the Srila Prabhupada himself, right? He was actually in Vrindavan before coming here. He could have always retired there peacefully. He's a pure devotee himself, right? But he took pains uh, to come here. Before that, he wrote Srimad Bhagavatam. So that's what he's bringing, the message of the Lord with him, right? And he traveled on the ship with great difficulty. And he comes to US to spread the Krishna consciousness. And it's not an easy journey. For first 1 year, almost nothing happened, right? Everything happened after 1 year, right? So uh, that's why this verse is a perfect example uh, or the description given to our founder Acharya here, Srila Prabhupada. Here, I want to bring one aspect that scriptures sometimes seemingly contradict in terms of details, because some other scripture would say, particularly in the practice which used to be followed in those days when Prabhupada was there, or even before Acharyas, that no one should cross the ocean, right? And they used to consider people who have crossed the ocean as fallen or lowly kind of people, and it's an instruction that nobody should cross the ocean. But Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati ordered his disciples to cross the ocean, and Srila Prabhupada himself crossed the ocean, right? So then how do we understand that? But in this verse, it is saying that devotees travel all over the world. But actually, it's Prabhupada who is translating this. This is interesting, because here it says just that verse, if you see translation, Charanti. Charanti means they travel, but it didn't specifically mention where they travel. Prabhupada is extending it to travel all over the world, actually. Uh, Travel on the earth. So basically all over the world. So how to understand this context, saying that which instruction is applicable, which is not applicable. So for this, there is a tool recently I was hearing from Chaitanya Charan Prabhu's class, not this specific class for this verse, but in general class, that he talks about a tool used in the understanding the scriptures or any subject matter. It's called the ladder of abstraction. The ladder of abstraction is basically, it is a uh, ladder, we know, right? Uh, we use ladder to go from one step to higher step, right? From lower step to higher step. So the ladder of abstraction is used as a tool where a application or a detail used in one context, that is seen as a lower step in the ladder of abstraction, and you go from the lower step to higher step, know the principle, why that principle is why that detail is applicable at that any particular situation, then using those principle again come down to the ladder of abstraction to our context, right? So probably in those contexts of olden days, I don't know why that particular detail was there, but maybe one of the thing I could understand is don't take bad association. Maybe devotees, people who are uh, beyond the oceans, they were not considered as a cultured people or things like that, right? So not taking the bad association is probably the principle if you go up the ladder of abstraction. So that particular detail was applied in that particular context. But now Prabhupada, the way he applies that particular principle is don't take bad association. He says, yes, I will not take bad association, but I will give association based on my compassionate nature. So now he come down to the ladder of abstraction to the current context, saying that in modern context, the way to apply that principle is that travel all over the world. Which is directly opposite. In the previous days, it's applied as don't travel, don't cross over the oceans. Now he applies the same principle as travel all over the world. Crossing the oceans doesn't matter. Uh, because of the compassionate nature to spread Krishna consciousness. So details can be completely opposite. In fact, I was also remembering Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, spiritual master, orders him, if I remember correctly, 3 instructions actually during the initiations. He says, don't go to Calcutta, something like that. And don't build temples or lavish temples. Uh, and what else? I forgot all the 3 instructions, but to the effect that don't leave Mayapur area and all, don't go to the cities to preach and things like that. But Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati actually breaks all the 3 principles. He doesn't follow his spiritual master. Apparently, by look at it, we can say that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati is breaking all the principles, right? So, but if you see the higher principle, it's not that Bhaktisiddhanta spiritual master is not willing to spread Krishna consciousness. That is not his motto. But he, according to his context, he was talking about those principles. Sorry, not principles, the details. But then Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati goes to the principle. What is the essence that my Guru Maharaj wants to tell? And he goes back to the essence and he brings that essence to his context. And then he applies those. So for this, one has to be kind of understanding the essence. That means he must be really Krishna conscious to understand the inner meaning of spiritual master's instructions. It's not easy. We cannot do that straight away. Of course, we can consult our senior devotees and then we can apply details in our context, because details will differ in different contexts. I just want to bring that point of a tool. It's important to learn that tool. And so coming back to this verse itself, to be obedient to the wishes of the Supreme Lord is the natural position of every living entity. In fact, Prabhupada, in his purport, he actually focuses first part on the second translation, to show compassion of the fallen souls who are averse to the sense of subordination to the Lord. So he's saying that the natural position of the living entity is being subordinate to the Lord, which is explained in the Bhagavad Gita, right? Mavai Vamso Jiva Loke, Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. But due to the past misstates, a living entity, being becomes averse to the sense of subordination to the Lord and suffers all the miseries of material existence. Again, this is also explained in Bhagavad Gita in chapter 13. I'm forgetting the verse. Prakriti Janguna. Yeah. 13:23, I guess. So that particular verse, it says that under the influence of the modes of material nature, the living entity does all kinds of activities and suffers his own reactions. So, and no one has anything to do but render devotional service to the Supreme Lord Krishna. Therefore, any activity other than transcendental loving service to the Lord is more or less rebellious action against the Supreme Will. So now Prabhupada again bring back the positive aspect that for the living entity, the only real activity is the devotional service. Any activity actually done apart from devotional service is an indication that the soul is rebellious towards the will of the Lord. Right? And now he's connecting to the previous verse of this 352 of Srimad Bhagavatam. All fruitive activities, empirical philosophy, and mysticism are more or less against the sense of subordination to the Lord. And any living entity engaged in rebellious activity is more or less condemned by the laws of the material nature, which work under the subordination of the Lord. So in the second verse, Vidura is asking a very generic question for the public, saying that people in general are accustomed to do fruitive activities, and by doing the fruitive activities, they are suffering in this world. And what is the best way so that their sufferings can be mitigated? That was the second verse. So now here, this Prabhupada is explaining, giving hint to that verse, uh, saying that uh, any of all these fruitive activities and all, when we do, it shows that we are against the, we are not uh, subordinate to the will of the Lord, right? So that's what yesterday Mataji was also telling. The solution is submission to the Lord, or taking shelter of the Lord, to avoid those sufferings. And so the only solution for that now comes the glorification of the Vidura to the Maitreya Muni, that he is glorifying that the only solution is actually the devotees of the Lord who are traveling all over the world. Great and honored devotees of the Lord are compassionate towards the fallen, and therefore they travel all over the world with the mission of bringing souls back to Godhead, back to home. Such pure devotees of the Lord carry the message of Godhead in order to deliver the fallen souls, and therefore the common man who is bewildered by the influence of external energy of the Lord should avail himself of their association. So here, even though Vidura is glorifying the Maitreya Muni, that he is traveling all over the world, and at least to Haridwar in that case, spreading the glories of the Lord, and in that way helping the everyone to become subordinate to the will of the Lord instead of going away from the will of the Lord. So we can see that this is what all the great devotees and acharyas did in the past as well, including the Lord himself. In fact, we can see that in a way Lord descends. So he's actually coming from the spiritual world. He is also traveling across the universes, across the, in fact, even spiritual world to material world, to let us know, give the glimpses of the spiritual world, right? And also great devotees also travel, including Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also traveled entire South India, and in fact all over India actually. South India Yatra also is very popular to spread Krishna consciousness. So with that, I would like to conclude here that in this context, when Vidura Muni, Vidura comes in contact with Maitreya Muni in Haridwar, he is actually glorifying Maitreya, saying that devotees like you are traveling all over the world, spreading the glories of the Lord in such a way that all the people, general people who are addicted to fruitive activities, they become Krishna conscious, and that way they mitigate all their sufferings which they accumulated because of the fruitive activities. So that is the summary of this verse. And if any of you have any few thoughts or discussions or any corrections, please go ahead. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Any questions or discussion, Prabhu? Yeah, sure. And online, anyone have any thoughts?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Please accept my repentance. Yeah, Radha Kunj Bihari, Prabhu, go ahead.
No, Mataji, please go ahead. I'll speak after you.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Yeah.
All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you, Prabhu. Very nicely you explained the whole verse. I really like the way you have connected each word of the verse. Very beautiful. And you were saying it's for memorization. I kind of memorized as you're reciting and explaining word by word. And I really like the concept that you were explaining, this ladder of abstraction. Because I feel there are so many aspects like that when we are reading scriptures from one place to the other. It just becomes so confusing and I think the key is the context and this where to apply the details, where to see it as a big picture. So it became a little bit clear on that. Thank you. And I also love the way you brought Srila Prabhupada's example. It's just so graphic. Yeah. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
We lost the connection here. We missed whatever you said.
Is that
Hare Krishna.
deliberate?
No, it's not deliberate.
No problem. Haribol.
Haribol.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Can
Hare
I
Krishna.
speak now?
Yes, Prabhu. Sure.
Prabhuji, you're, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Such a sweet, class. I always look forward for your, classes. So nice, so well enumerated point by point and all of that. And, there were a lot of thought-provoking points you brought up. I have like 3 or 4 of them listed, but, I'll take up one and then probably we can go to the others later. You spoke about the rebellious nature of the soul. Now, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna actually talks about the nature of the soul, and he says it has, it cannot be killed, it cannot be wet, it cannot be burnt, it cannot be done that, and there's so many things. And all of these, in addition to that, the nature of the soul is it is eternal, like the Lord himself. So
Yeah.
is rebellion also one of those natures of the soul which is already there, and that is why the souls rebel every now and then, and it has been going on for eternity? How do we understand this, Prabhuji?
Yeah. I may not be know the answer, Prabhu, specifically to your question, but I think this question is a very common question. Even Bhaktivinoda Thakur had asks actually this question: why, in the first place, jivas come to the material world? What in this? Because they were so happy in the spiritual world, right?
Yeah.
In the association of Krishna. So
Yeah.
what makes them desire that, oh, I want to enjoy separate from Krishna, and eventually they had to come to material world to experience their particular desire of enjoying separate from Krishna. And in fact, I remember Maharaj also telling there is no direct answer for that question. There is no if my memory is correct, there is no good answer for that, in the sense why the soul chooses enjoyment separate from Krishna. So maybe that is the seed of the rebellion, if I
Okay.
understand.
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. So, actually in the same canto, I think towards 13th, 14th chapter, Jaya Vijaya episode, Hiranyakashipu episode comes in. And even there, like the 2 doorkeepers of the Lord who are actually, so involved in serving the Lord, somehow or the other become angry. And then, because of that, they get cursed.
Yeah.
So, it gives us a glimpse what can go on even in Vaikunta. But like you said, yeah, okay, Prabhuji, not a problem. I have one comment, and if time permits, one more question. My
Yes,
comment
sir.
is about, Maitreya Muni and Uddhava being present there, and how Krishna chooses to speak to Uddhava instead of Maitreya Muni. Again, going back to Bhagavad Gita, I don't remember the exact words, but Krishna actually says, of all the people he likes Gnanis, and above Gnanis are the pure devotees of the Lord whom he prefers. And here I think it's an example of that particular shloka, like Bhagavad Gita shloka. So that's what I was thinking, Prabhuji. Any comments on that?
Yes, Prabhu. I think you brought a nice point. The way, based on Acharya's commentaries, I think we understand that before this particular incident happened, Maitreya Muni was a Jnana Bhakta. He was a devotee, but he was a mixed devotee. Particularly, I think impersonal tendencies also. And Krishna, out of his compassion, he wants to bring Maitreya Muni also make him pure devotee. Like in the case of Kumaras, right? Kumaras were also Gyanis, impersonalists. Before actually they meet the Lord in the Vaikunta and smell the tulsi leaves, right?
Yeah, Prabhuji.
So there, I think the Lord made them devotees. Here, this is the arrangement I think he made to make Maitreya Muni as a devotee. So when he sees the loving exchanges between the Lord and Uddhava, the Maitreya Muni's heart must have melted. Wow, this is how a devotee is, the interaction between the devotee and the Lord. Maybe I should also become a devotee instead of just being a impersonal Gyani, and right? I'm
Yeah,
guessing that.
yeah. Actually, you bring out the point. I was about to ask the same question. Like generally we are, in general, maybe it's my understanding, we are told that an impersonalist cannot go beyond Brahma Jyoti. However, these are two instances. There are many more, where even somebody like, what happens is, even before they become a devotee, both Maitreya Muni and who's this? Kumaras, the four Kumaras, particularly Kumaras are allowed to enter Vaikunta, though they can't get beyond the seventh gate, but they're allowed to enter Vaikunta. And in Maitreya Muni's case, he's in the presence of the Lord. And how is it that when an impersonalist cannot really cross the Brahma Jyoti, they're able to really see the Brahman, not Brahman, Bhagavan, the Bhagavan aspect of the Lord? How is it they're able to see that, Prabhuji?
Yeah. Again, I don't know the specific answer, Prabhu, but the question is, how is that impersonalists were able to access Vaikunta or even direct darshan of the Lord, when we know that it's not really possible for them to go to Vaikunta and all, right? In general, that's what we hear, right? We need qualification to enter into Vaikunta planets, or even to see the Lord directly, one-to-one, face-to-face. But in this case, Maitreya Muni, yes. In fact, I was about to tell that. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, Prabhu.
Is not a classic definition of a pure devotee.
Yes.
Devotee wouldn't work.
Yes. Yeah. Prabhu, so I'm remembering, and devotee here also mentioned here that you were there online, right? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, Prabhuji, I'm here.
Yeah, because here connection, I think it should,
That's okay, Prabhuji. Yeah.
So Durvasa Muni is also another example, Prabhu. Like he also goes to Vaikunta. Yeah.
Even Bhrigu Muni also goes to Vaikunta, Prabhuji.
Yes. Yeah. And I can only say that In fact, Prabhupada says that in Bhagavatam only, I think, when that moon landing and all happened, Prabhupada said, yeah, people might have gone to moon, but they didn't get the essence of the moon. Means they physically went there,
Yeah.
but they don't have the access to the real wealth or the real nature of the moon. So physically, by mechanical means, they would have approached. So here also, I can think, based on their capacity of their austerity and their power, right? The yogic power that required. So they were able to probably physically go and access those locations.
Yeah.
But did they experience all the loving feelings towards the Lord? And as soon as they see the Lord, they cried? I don't think so. So they were just amazed, probably.
Yeah. That makes sense, Prabhuji. And you know, but the curious case is of Bhrigu Muni. You know, Bhrigu Muni not only crosses the 7 gates, he's in a material body. You know, he goes straight to the Lord, and he actually lands a blow on the chest of the Lord.
Yes.
Which is completely spiritual, and he's completely material. And we are, again, that's another thing. Material things cannot touch spiritual things, particularly the Lord himself. How is this even possible? Again, inconceivable.
Yeah.
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you. Thank you,
Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for your nice points, Prabhu. So we will conclude here. Thank you very much for joining. Vancha kalpatarubhyasya kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Grandhara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.